How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Flame. We're back with another FPL video, and today it's a different series. Today, you can see I got the roulette tables behind me. The only thing that means is Pep Roulette. So this is going to be a series where we try to guess and kind of evaluate Man City assets going into the next game week. And what do I mean by this? Well, basically, Pep Guardiola, the manager of Manchester City, has a tendency to rotate his players quite significantly, especially when there's either tight fixtures, competitions, end of the season, all that sort of stuff. So when it comes down to it, we want to nail the players that are starting. In Game Week 38, we're most likely to get some sort of team news, but I think it'd be a fun series to kind of do, and the roulette tables look pretty cool in my opinion. And I've always liked roulette as just a game because it's quite fun. But yeah, we're going to be checking them out for Game Week 37 plus. This is going to be to set up our video for tomorrow, which is going to be for Game Week 38 plus, even though, like I said, we'll get team news for that. But I think it's a good premise to start off with. We won't be doing this every week in the next FPL season because it's only when the fixtures start to get a bit tighter, so around like Christmas time and that sort of stuff, we can bring the series back. But I think it's going to be quite fun to see who starts and see who we got right and that sort of stuff going into their game tomorrow. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So this is the graphic that we're going to be using for Pep Roulette. We're going to have each of the Manchester City players that are considered good FPL assets on the screen one at a time. We're going to have the fixtures down below. I have the name below me, little Manchester City logo to my side. And you can see all the different minutes and the amount of points that they scored within those minutes on the fixture that they played. So we've got Game Week 34, 35, 36, and the FA Cup game versus Arsenal. In the Newcastle game, they won 5-0. In the Brighton game, they won 5-0. In the Bournemouth game, they won 2-1. And the FA Cup game, they lost 2-0. But the main important thing is the amount of minutes that they played. That's kind of what we're looking at in terms of rotation-wise. And we're going to start here with David Silva. All of them are going to obviously play in their next game versus Watford away. And David Silva is mainly featured in the last few fixtures at home, specifically from the start. So in the Newcastle game, he played 90 minutes, then was dropped to the bench, and then he played 26 versus Brighton, and then played 90 minutes versus Bournemouth, getting another big score, and then played a significant amount of minutes in the FA Cup game. So basically what I'm thinking with David Silva is that he's probably not going to feature in the Watford game, if at all, and I think he'll be rested for the last fixture at home to Norwich, where they'll probably play a pretty strong side, just to kind of give David Silva, if he does decide to leave the club at the end of the season, kind of that little farewell and kind of like thank you for your services. And they want to make sure obviously that they put on a good performance. I can easily see them telling like Kevin De Bruyne to play in that game, but play a bit more of a reserved role and have David Silva kind of play more of the let him do his own thing, you know, the kind of the free role as it were. So I think he'll definitely be in the last fixture of the season and highly unlikely to play versus Watford, considering he played 90 minutes and then 88 minutes in back-to-back games for City in their last two fixtures. Another thing to also note is that Pep came out in his conference a little while ago, and he basically said that he wants to get everyone involved before the end of the Premier League season. So whether that means he's going to bring in youngsters or not, I don't know. I'm pretty sure he just means that like all of the attackers get a start, all of the defenders get a start, and all of like the other like players that typically play, like I wouldn't call them fringe players, but more of like bench kind of players that play every other, like Gundogan and, you know, Otamendi and Stones and people like that wouldn't normally start in most cases. They're going to see some. Zinchenko is another one. It's going to see some minutes, and some of those are probably going to play in this Watford game, and then some are potentially going to play in the Norwich game at home, whether it be from the start or from the bench. But I think David Silva this week, if you have him in your team, I definitely say stick with him unless you're going to use a free transfer to bring in somebody else that's most likely to start. I don't think he's going to start this game again. I would be very surprised if he gets any minutes at all versus Watford away. Now moving on to the next Man City player, it's the other Silva, it's Bernardo Silva, and he's been featuring a lot less. Now in the earlier parts of the season, he was starting a lot of games, he was quite an integral player for Manchester City and for Pep Guardiola's side. He's one of these players that can play in either side of midfield, in the left or right channel for the like 8, taking up the half spaces in between the midfield and the defense of the opposition. He can also play left wing, right wing, he could potentially play false 9, although he hasn't really been executed there either, but he can play a number of different positions. But in recent weeks he's been more of a bench player. So if we look down below, you can see that he's gone 26 minutes in game week 34, played the full 90 in 35, only played 45 because he got yanked off at halftime, I believe, versus Bournemouth at home. And then he had 0 minutes in the Arsenal game. He didn't feature at all, which makes me believe that he's probably going to start in their game versus Watford away, and then will be benched for game week 38. So if you want to use that free transfer to take out David Silva and bring in Bernardo Silva, I think that is a potential swap that you could do, and then make it back the other way going into game week 38. The only thing is that basically eats up both your 2 free transfers for those game weeks if you do decide to do that. However, the one thing that I will note is that when he comes on for any type of bench appearance, don't expect him to get much. Obviously, we've seen in the last 2 bench appearances that he's made in 45 minutes from the start for the Bournemouth game even, and the 26-minute kind of cameo that he made in the Newcastle game. Not really too much going on. He's more of a facilitator. He's not going to be one to get massive amount of FPL points. Yeah, he might get a goal or an assist, but it's not going to be like David Silva when he played versus Bournemouth and just get a whole bunch of points racked up. It's not going to be like how he played versus Newcastle, where David Silva, I think, got 17 points. He's just going to be more of a facilitator. So if you need a little, maybe as a differential, he could definitely be one there. I'm not personally looking at him unless kind of the money and kind of the team value kind of warrants it, and that's the only option I have left. But I would be steering clear of Bernardo Silva. I think he'll probably start in the Watford game, and if you want to make that swap from David Silva to Bernardo Silva just for that one game week, I think he could potentially be an okay option. But remember, Watford still have something to fight for, and Bernardo Silva's form hasn't been that good. So I would say probably steer clear of Bernardo Silva for the Pep Roulette assets going into game week 37 plus. Next up on the list, we have none other than Phil Foden. Now, he's obviously a youngster that's come through Manchester City's youth system and is playing quite well, even though he hasn't had the FPL returns that he would have liked. In the Newcastle game, he could have easily scored, a couple goals here and there. The Bournemouth game, he played 90 minutes, had a couple chances here and there as well, but he hasn't had any returns in the last 3 FPL game weeks, getting 3 points versus Newcastle, 1 point versus Brighton in the 26 minutes he was subbed on for, and 90 minutes versus Bournemouth, where he only got 2 points as well there. In the FA Cup, he only featured 24 minutes, and Foden seems to be the one that's more of a kind of concrete pattern as to when he's going to play. So he starts in game week 34, benched in game week 35, starts in 36, benched in the FA Cup game. So I expect him to be starting in game week 37 and then benched for game week 38 when they go to play the likes of Norwich in the final game of the season, where I think Pep's probably going to play his full strength 11 out there, because he wants David Silva. If he does, like I said, decide not to basically return, then he's going to be, kind of wanting him to have the best kind of homage to how City played in the best kind of scenario where they go out and they win a boatload of goals to nil, basically. So I think that Phil Foden would definitely start in the Watford game. So if you have him, I would say stick with him and then kind of wait for team news for game week 38 plus to see if he does start. I'm not ruling him out completely, but it's just the pattern that we've seen is starts one game, bench the next game, start one game, bench the next game. So I definitely think he'll start in game week 37 plus and probably be benched in game week 38. Now, the next player on our list is Gabriel Jesus. Now, he has been playing phenomenally in the last few games. He played 60 minutes in the Newcastle game, 63 minutes in the Brighton game, 76 minutes in the Bournemouth game, all of which he got 8 points or more. He got 8 points in the 34 and 36 game week fixtures, and then 14 in the Brighton fixture away in game week 35. Obviously, no City player gets returns because of the FA Cup game for their last game, where he played 90 minutes, which is unlike him. I think that they mainly kept him and a lot of the assets on the field because they were down and they needed to keep all their attacking assets on the pitch in order for them to score. Usually, I think Jesus will get his minutes managed. I can definitely see him starting this game week against Watford as well as versus Norwich at home, but I do think his minutes will be managed. I don't see him playing much past 60 minutes, and he might not start this week in particular just because he played 90 minutes, although a couple other assets did as well, so it's kind of a coin toss there. I think Jesus will definitely start for the rest of the season, but I do think his minutes will be managed, and don't be surprised if he gets hooked off at 55 50 minutes or those sorts of time brackets. And the thing is, it's nothing to worry about. He plays for Manchester City. He is a striker. He's probably going to score. So I definitely think that there's not really too much to worry about if you own him. I would say stick with him. If he doesn't play in the Watford game or only comes on as a substitute appearance, not the end of the world, because you definitely know that he's going to be starting in the final game of the season because Pep said he's going to rotate all of his players. And he's been putting out good numbers. So even if he does come on for only like 20 to 30 minutes, I can see him definitely putting up a decent score. So I would say stick with Jesus if you have him already. I wouldn't remove him unless we get early team news in 38 specifically, where it says that he's not starting in the final game. Next up on our list, we have none other than Kevin De Bruyne. Now, I can definitely see Kevin De Bruyne playing for the rest of the season, and the reason being is because he definitely can start multiple games back to back to back and have no problem. The guy's a machine. He can run for 90 minutes the entire game, comes off the field looking like a Manchester United jersey in color, and he just keeps running and running and running, and he just never stops. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He has a ridiculous tank on him, and he's very good at what he does. Newcastle at home, he played 90 minutes, got 7 points. Brighton away, only got 63 minutes and 3 points. Not the end of the world there. Didn't play a single minute versus the Bournemouth game, so he's had his complete rest for the remainder of the season, in my opinion. He did play 90 minutes versus Arsenal, but I expect him to play Watford away and Norwich at home. And whether his minutes get managed or not, we will have to see. But I definitely think he will start the Watford game as well as the Norwich game, and whether his minutes get managed or not, depending on how big the score totals get, will yet to be determined. And he's just a great FPL asset. He has a ridiculous goal involvement to game ratio. He's always involved, and when he's in the game itself, it frees up other Man City assets to get returns. So they're worried about Kevin De Bruyne with the deep crosses, the playmaking from deep, the getting into the half spaces, all these sorts of things, his free kicks, all that sort of stuff is what the enemy team has to worry about. But then they forget about the likes of Riyad Mahrez. They forget about Sterling. They forget about Jesus. And these guys can get more space, which is why against Arsenal, you saw when De Bruyne was kind of locked up and kind of had to swing the ball into the box. Or Arsenal said, well, you can't get the ball inside our box. We're just going to pin everyone inside and make sure we clear it out. So they kind of had a good game plan going into how they basically let City have the ball and just break on the counter attack. And you can see also why in the Bournemouth game why they struggled, because in the 2-1 win, they still won the game, but it was a bit dicey in that they didn't play De Bruyne at all, and City kind of found it a bit troubling after basically they scored their first two to kind of get more involved, because Bournemouth kind of sat back a little bit and says, okay, let's shield this up a little bit, let's kind of lock things down. And they found it quite hard to get inside the 18 with any sort of space. They could have potentially scored a couple more, but again, you have to take your chances. But I think Kevin De Bruyne is the main reason why City has been like very good over the past few seasons. Him and Aguero mainly are the main two. And I just think that De Bruyne is a very crucial asset going into next game week. I definitely wouldn't get rid of him. I think he's going to start in the Watford away game. And then I expect him to see some minutes, whether it's a start or a benching in the Norwich at home game. But we will have to see on that front. Our penultimate player here is none other than Riyad Mahrez. He played 74 minutes in the Newcastle at home game in 34, 90 minutes in the Brighton away game in 35, 16 minutes in the Bournemouth game in a substitution cameo, and then 66 minutes in the Arsenal FA Cup game. He scored 8 points and 6 points in the two games that he did start and play over 60 minutes, so he does tend to return quite often, and I believe has a similar, if not better, points per game ratio than Kevin De Bruyne does in the games that he does start. I expect him to start in the game versus Watford because he was taken off so early, and I would not be surprised if he didn't start in the Norwich game as well. Riyad Mahrez, much like Raheem Sterling, who we'll get onto next, have a very fast like metabolism or recovery time or whatever you want to call it. Basically, their body recovers from football games a lot faster because of the way that they're built and just kind of their physique and all that sort of stuff. Kevin De Bruyne is another one where they can play multiple games in quick succession and not be hampered performance-wise, where some players it's a bit different. So I think the likes of Riyad Mahrez, if you have him in your team, I would definitely keep him. If he does get rested in the Watford game, you would definitely see him playing in the Norwich at home game, or he'll get minutes off the bench in some type of appearance, although that doesn't bode well because when he did come on as a sub in the Bournemouth game, he didn't do anything. However, it's very unlikely that, these sorts of players, when they do come on for 20 to 30 minutes, if the game is like 4 or 5-0, the likelihood of them going to score is probably not very high. However, if there's anything like Raheem Sterling, where he came on and got 10 points in that game, that he came on and cameoed in recently, I think that, there's still potential. Mahrez is a very dangerous player. He's got a insanely good left foot, and you know what he's going to do. He's going to cut inside and shoot on his left, Iron Robin style. And I still think he's a dangerous threat. And I think he's going to be the one that starts this game week out on the right. And I think it could be Raheem Sterling or potentially Gabriel Jesus. We'll see in the lineup who's going to basically miss out in this coming game week. And the last major Manchester City asset that we have is Raheem Sterling. We mentioned his 10-pointer in the 29 minutes he came on versus Newcastle. He also got a hat-trick in the Brighton away game in the full 90 minutes that he played. He came on against Bournemouth at halftime, I believe it was directly for Bernardo Silva, and then played 90 minutes versus Arsenal. So I can definitely see him being benched in this game week because he kind of follows a similar-ish pattern. His minutes will definitely be managed in this game if he does play. I expect him to be benched though. I think he's going to be much like David Silva, the two that make way for the rest of the assets that we've mentioned. I don't expect him to see a massive substitute appearance, although I have him listed as one of the key subs, and I think maybe he gets 20 to 30 minutes versus Watford. I would be very wary of captaining somebody this game week because it's most likely that we're going to get team news for 38. Early team news, that is, so we can see who's starting, and I think he could be one of them, so he's potential captaincy option for next game week. But like I said, he's one of the riskier picks this week. If you're looking to bring a City player in this week, I don't think Sterling is the one. I think you probably go for more of like a Riyad Mahrez, or you go for Kevin De Bruyne if you don't have them. Maybe even Phil Foden because he's more likely to start than Raheem Sterling this week, even though Raheem Sterling is very good, as we've seen, coming off the bench and getting points. But I wouldn't necessarily be bringing him in. I currently have him in my team, but I think that, you know, if you're going to be bringing in somebody this week, Raheem Sterling's probably not the pick. Next week, definitely, especially if you see him start on the bench in this game week 37. So this is my predicted Manchester City FPL style lineup that we have here. I have Ederson in goal, mainly because Bravo was out injured, and that's why he played in the FA Cup game. I think he's going to go with a completely different back four. He's going to have Zinchenko coming in for Mendy, John Stones and Otamendi coming in for the likes of Laporte and Garcia, and Cancelo coming out on the right-hand side. And replacing Kyle Walker. But that's not really where most people are kind of looking at. They're looking at the midfield and the attack. I think Fernandinho, he made a substitute appearance in the FA Cup game. I think he'll start this game against Watford. And I think he'll play Kevin De Bruyne in the right center midfield slot. And I think Bernardo Silva or Foden, depending on how he kind of positions them, will play in the other midfield slot here. I think that Bernardo Silva is likely to start this game as well as Phil Foden. So you can expect to see them either on the left wing or the left center midfield slot, kind of playing as the number 8 playmaker in there. It's probably more likely to be Bernardo Silva potentially in the center of midfield and Foden out on the wing, because he typically plays Foden out on the left wing and Bernardo Silva out on the right wing, if he's going to play them both. But in terms of like the front three, I think Mahrez will start, Jesus will start, and that will relegate Sterling and David Silva to the bench, which we have noted in the key substitutions down off to my left-hand side. And the reason I picked Jesus over the likes of Sterling in a false 9 system is because Jesus will have his minutes managed, and he's the only out-and-out striker that they really have, unless Pep tries to go with a false 9 kind of rotation or kind of setup that they're going to be going for. I would not be surprised if Sterling did start over Jesus. They both did play 90 minutes, and they have played a significant number of minutes in the previous few games. All in all, I think this is mostly what the lineup's going to kind of look like. The main assets that I'm almost certain that are going to start is Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, Riyad Mahrez, and Kevin De Bruyne. Those four, and then it's going to be one of Jesus or Sterling in the false 9 or number 9 position. But the other four, I think I'm pretty confident that they will start. As for the defenders and the midfielders, the rest of the midfield, I think that's kind of more of guesswork. Not many people are going for those. People are going for more the attackers. I just like to put it up as a graphic as if it was an official Man City team sheet. It looks quite nice when doing that. So yeah, that's my predicted lineup for Game Week 37 plus for Manchester City. And that's going to do it for our Game Week 37 plus rendition of Pep Roulette. Apologies if it was a very long video. It was quite detailed in terms of the number of players that we have to get through. Like I said, it will probably be similar-ish next week as well. However, going forward, when there's, not as many games and that sort of stuff, it will just be kind of looking at the key players like Riyad Mahrez, Raheem Sterling, Aguero when he's back fit, Kevin De Bruyne, and then probably maybe mention other players on their slides. And I think that that's probably going to be more of the format. So it's not going to be as long, but I thought I'd do a bit more detail because there's more players in contention. And that's where the episodes will get a little bit longer, when there's more players that could potentially be involved. So when Pep says he's going to be rotating his whole team, and you'll see all of his team in the next 2 game weeks, you're probably going to see all of his team in the next 2 game weeks. So we have to kind of talk about the main FPL assets, which is both Silva's, Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, Riyad Mahrez, Jesus, and Raheem Sterling, which is a lot of players to obviously cover. But yeah, make sure to leave a comment down below if you enjoyed the series and which players from Man City that you're going to be looking forward to playing this week and in game week 38. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoy this. I think this series can be quite fun, and it's mainly due to the fact that Pep rotates his team a lot. It's more of a guesswork, and we can kind of, you know, in the beginning of each video, kind of see how we did in terms of our starting lineup and that sort of stuff. So that'd be kind of cool to see how accurate we were. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. We have a video coming out every day this week. It's going to be Pep Roulette Monday, Tuesday, and then we're going to have a free hit triple captaincy video, a buy, hold, sell, 2 streams, a deadline one and one on Friday. I think I have it scheduled for. I put a tweet out for all the videos that we've done, which is where you can follow us over on those platforms. Pilot Flame 226 on Twitter and Twitch. That's where we do our, we post our videos over there, and we post when we go live for our streams. And then Pilot Flame 226, like I said, on Twitch is where we do our game week discussion and deadline streams. So we'd be interested if you could join us for that. So that's going to do it for this rendition of Pep Roulette. We'll be here tomorrow as well for the Game Week 38 Plus rendition of it as well, and see how we did in terms of our guesswork after Manchester City play against Watford. So until then, take care.